Morning, everyone. This is the time of the year where students graduate, and some people call it a graduation ceremony, others call it a commencement ceremony. Graduation means you completed something, commence means you're beginning something. There's a famous adage about education that says education is not the filling of a pail, but it's the kindling of a flame. What does that mean? So this week's Torah portion is Bahaloscha. The word Bahaloscha doesn't mean when you kindle. The word to kindle is lahadlik. It says Bahaloscha, when you raise up. And Rashi says, what does this mean? That the Kohen should hold his hand to the flame till it acha tehei shaleves ola me'aleh, till the flame rises up on its own. And that's the model of education. Education is where you inspire the child that the flame burns on their own, that the child doesn't complete his learning, but he now begins a lifelong quest of learning Torah because the flame has been kindled, and now the desire is burning within the child, the student, to continue their learning. It's interesting that later in this week's parsha we find that Moshe Rabbeinu says to Hashem, it's too difficult for me to lead the Jewish nation. So Hashem says, fine, gather 70 elders, v'atzalti min haruach, I'll take from your spirit and place it on them. And Rashi says, what does it mean I'll place from your spirit on the 70 elders? So Rashi says, it's like the kindling from a menorah lighting many flames. Now what is Rashi trying to add by saying that it's like the kindling of the flame? And here we get back to the quote, education is not the filling of a pail, but it's the kindling of a flame. What is the idea? When you kindle a flame, it's able to continue burning on its own, and it can kindle many more flames. But here's a deeper dimension to this as well. You know, when you talk about leadership, there are two words that people think are synonymous, but actually different. One is power, and the other is influence. Many people seek power, but what we really should look is not for power, but for influence. What's the difference between power and influence? Power is only as long as you are dominating the other person, you have the power over that person. But when the powerful person dies, his power dies with him. But the influence lives on beyond the power. And furthermore, when you take power and you divide it among seven, let's say Moshe Rabbeinu would take his power and divide it among 70 people. When you fill a pail, if I have a pail and I pour a little bit of water into 70 pails, I have 7 degrees less water in my pail because I shared it with everyone else. I divided my power among 70 people. But when I take a flame and I kindle 70 candles, not only don't I have less fire and light on my candle, but now I have 70 additional lights, which means influence multiplies. Power is divided, subdivided. It's a zero-sum game. Many people seek power in life. But Torah says, no, what you should seek to do is kindle someone else's flame, raise up someone else's fire, because then you increase the light and you multiply it, and it has a ripple effect that more and more flames could be lit. And that's why the whole idea of Talmud Torah is to teach our children Torah, because when you teach a child Torah, then they teach their child, and that's the way the light of Torah and the light of Judaism continues to burn brightly from generation to generation. I'll just conclude with a story that there was once a man who was in a forest. And he was a wood chopper. It was freezing cold. He was chopping wood, and then the snow started to come down, and it got dark, and he got lost in the forest. He didn't know how to find his way out of the forest. It was getting colder and colder, and he couldn't figure out how to get out. So he starts walking, looking this way, that way. Finally, he sees a light coming from a house. So he goes towards the house. Comes into the house, and he sees no one's in the house, but there's a fireplace, and there's a fire burning. So he goes, he warms himself up by the fire, he takes some water, he puts it on the fire, he drinks some hot water, and then he looks at his map and he figures out how to get home. It's been a few hours already after nightfall, and he figures out the direction, and he starts heading out the door. As he's heading out the door, he notices there's a sign over the fireplace, and the sign says, "Please add wood to the fire." But he's thinking to himself, it's so late, my family's waiting for me, they're worried, I don't have time to start adding wood to it. He just heads out the door. Meanwhile, as he heads out the door to go back home, his wife is at home with the kids and says, "Daddy's not home, it's late, I'm worried." She tells her older son, "Put on your coat, your boots, your hat, go into the forest and look for your father." And the story is that the father comes out of the forest in one direction, The sun goes in a different direction. And the sun gets lost because the snow is covering all the trails and it's a very dark night. And it gets colder and colder and colder. And unfortunately, the light in the house had already burnt out. And the sun never made it out of the forest alive. And the metaphor is that the flame of Judaism has been burning for over 3,000 years because there was a sign over the fireplace that said, please add wood to the fire. Every generation has to keep the fire burning by teaching their children Torah, passing on the flame. And unfortunately, when we don't carry that responsibility, then the flame and the warmth and the glow of Judaism is not there for the next generation, for our children, for our grandchildren. And that's the message of Bahaloscha, to kindle up the flames, seek to influence your child, influence them with the light of Torah so that they should have a burning desire to continue to perpetuate the flame of Judaism.